Please join me in welcoming Mr. Brian Wesbury.
Thanks, Joe. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Joe, thank you very much. That was great. Awesome. Roger, thank you for having Victoria. Thank you. But, you know, Jim and Maureen Buchwald saw me speak how long ago? 20 years ago? 20? We're not that old. So, yeah, you're not that old. Anyway, I've been in Knox County a number of times, but this is my first time here with you. And I got to tell you, I was met by Lisa at the door. I don't remember Lisa's last name, but I was at the door last night. She let me into this building next door, which I think is a dorm. And on top of that dorm is an apartment, a suite, a beautiful suite that I stayed in last night. Had a great night's sleep. But as I kind of went in and got situated in the room, I walked into this back area, and there on the wall are pictures of Ronald Reagan, George Will, Baker, Margaret Thatcher, and they've all spoken here. And I have to tell you, my thought was, what am I doing here? And I guess a better question is, what are you doing? Anyway, it's unbelievable to stand on this stage. It's great to be with you. And you know, part of my problem these days is we don't have all day and all night to be together, so there's no possible way we can cover everything that's on your mind. It's utterly impossible. There's 65 things at least, and each one of them, to do them justice, would take us 15, 20, 30 minutes each, and so we don't have the time. So I get to give you what I think are the important takeaways, or at least the way I look at the world. We'll have time for some questions, and that'll be it. But that's our dive into this. And so let me start out with what I've been doing just recently. In the last 2.5 weeks, three weeks now, I have read the transcripts, every word uttered in an official Federal Reserve meeting from the year 2008, okay? Now, just so you know, these transcripts are released, the verbatim transcripts are released 5 years after the year is over. So we just got the 08, 49 weeks from now we'll get the 09. But I read, it's 559,000 words. Put that in perspective. It's the Old Testament is 593,000 words. All right. In the Old Testament, we built, the universe was created. We wandered around in the desert for 40 years. The earth flooded. A lot of stuff. Literally, the Fed. That's how much they talk. All right. And I want to start there, because my belief is that most people's view of the economy today, and especially financial markets, is influenced, I think, to too great of an extent by what happened in 2008. If you really think about it, it was trauma. I love good words. Trauma is a great word. It was a traumatic event. I mean, you remember it. Stocks going down, bonds going down, gold went down, oil went down, the value of your house went down. Doesn't matter where you lived, all right? Everything went down. Everyone in this room at some point in that winter sat down with their spouse. You remember the conversation. Honey, at least we have each other. Because that's it, all right? And even if we have something left today, we won't tomorrow. It was traumatic. And my view is that what we have taken away from that is a view of the world I personally think is wrong. Well, we've taken something else away from it, and that is we have post-traumatic stress disorder. All right, and I'm not making fun of that. I've never been to war myself. I don't have a family member that's been to war. I'm not a psychologist. But post-traumatic, the only experience I ever had with what I think was PTSD was on a golf course, believe it or not. Back in the 1980s, we picked up these two guys I didn't know. A helicopter flew right over us on the 8th tee, and somebody thought it was funny to yell, incoming. And one of the guys that we picked up hit the dirt. And I don't mean hit the dirt. He hugged the earth. His reaction scared me, all right? And then he got up, dusted himself off, picked up his bag, and left. In my mind, that's PTSD, okay? That wherever his mind was transported at that moment, he was scared for his life, he was shaken to his core, and he didn't know what to do with himself. He left, all right? And isn't that the way investing has felt in the last 5 years? You know, I assume you wouldn't be here unless you cared about economics or investing. You know, obviously you care about Ashland and Ashbrook, but what I mean is to listen to somebody talk about this stuff. We all have a front row seat to this in a way. I do TV. It's not, there's nothing spectacular about it. It's TV. That's it. But I remember a few times over the past few years, and I think it describes what we're living through. August of 09, maybe it was July of 09. So if you remember, the market bottomed in March of 2009. It was up it went up real strongly, like right away after the bottom. And so they have me on CNBC. I get my little earpiece in. I think that guy Nouriel Roubini was on right before me, okay? So I don't know if you remember him, but they were asking him what's going on. And, you know, he's, market's up, Nouriel. You know, what do you think? He goes, oh, this is a dead cat bounce. It cannot last. The world is coming to an end any day now. And the market's going to go back down. And they're like, they called him Dr. Doom. And they're like, you are a genius. You're brilliant. Thank you for coming on our show. We're so happy that you were here. I wish you didn't have to go because now we got that Wesbury guy. All right. And so then they come to me and they're like, what do you think? And I'm like, I think, you know, the economy is going to recover. It's not going to boom. I think the market's really cheap. I think we're going to be okay. And then they drop the bomb on me. What about Dubai? Now think about that question for a second. I'm like, you mean where it is? Is this a geography test? I'm like, no, everybody knew what they meant. Dubai was in financial trouble, and if they went down, they'd be like a domino, and they'd knock all the other dominoes down, and we were the last domino, and we would go back into 2008. The trauma, right? That's what they meant. And I'm like, look, Dubai is teeny. It's really, really small. We're big. America's strong. Like, we'll be okay. And then my 3 minutes were up. All right, boom. So a couple months later, they call me back. And they say, I remember Mary says, they want you on Tuesday. And I'm like, Mary, they're going to tell me how right I was about Dubai. I went to the bathroom. I was practicing being humble in the mirror. You know, I was ready for this. I went on air, and they didn't mention Dubai once. And I want you to think about that. Over the last 5 years, how many things have been going to take us out, and then they don't take us out, and then they never talk about them again. They didn't come back and say, well, this is why Dubai didn't take us out. They didn't come back and say, well, we were wrong. They just ignore it. They just move on to the next thing. So now I'm on the air. What do you think's going on? I said, I think the market's cheap. I think we're going to keep growing. It's early 2000. And they're like, what about the BP oil spill? I'm like, you don't know where that is either? I'm like, look, I've never been a mile deep in the Gulf. I mean, I'm on CNBC. I'm like, have any of you, like, you anchors, you're acting like you have? They've now, by the way, every anchor on TV has flown a 777 Boeing jet too. But nonetheless, I'm like, they're going to plug the thing. I'm sure there's a plumber working on it right now. All right. And I will be all right. And this has gone on for 5 years. Fiscal cliffs, sequesters, debt downgrades, tapering, not tapering, more QE, not enough QE. All right? Greece, Italy, Spain, Portugal, Ukraine, on and on and on. So the last time I was on, they were like, what about Cyprus? I'm like, here we go again. It's tiny. It's really, really small. Actually, I want to tell you what I said on air. I still kind of can't believe I said this, but I'm like, look, we did the work. The economy of Cyprus is exactly the same size as the economy of Green Bay, Wisconsin. I said, I live in Chicago. Most people here really don't care what happens to Green Bay.